Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the best and some of the not as best recordings of William Walton's Belshazzar's Feast. Oh, we love Belshazzar's Feast, or Belshazzar's Feast, or Belshazzar's Feast. Doesn't make any difference. You can accent it anywhere you want. Belshazzar's Feast, if you want. It's perfectly fine. It's a masterpiece, however you pronounce it. And oh my goodness, it has been very lucky on disc, because it's not an easy piece to do, not by any stretch of the imagination. Only 35 minutes long or so. Beecham said to Walton, "Come on, throw all the extra brass in, do what you want. No one's ever going to play it again." He was wrong. It worked out quite well. Walton was a composer who had a very strange career. In his first sort of period up to about World War II, he went off like a volcano, writing one masterpiece after another, and then he cooled off and sort of went into dormancy until he wrote himself out completely. He was not prolific. He found composition a chore, something very difficult. He was extremely self-critical. If you look at his scores, you see that he notates with such precision. And also, he was a little note guy. In other words, he subdivides his beats and writes with lots of 16th and 32nd and 64th notes. So there's lots of notes in his scores. I mean, they must have taken him a very, very long time to work on, to write, because of that level of detail and precision that he always insisted on. Belshazzar's Feast was revised quite thoroughly, and not really to its advantage either. If you look at the critical edition of the score, which I have, because I've got the Walton sort of critical edition. It's a big hardcover thing. It's over in the other room there. They talk about how some of his trimming and getting rid of some smashing and bashing and whatnot to make it a little less noisy really wasn't to its advantage, because the noise was part of the freshness of the initial conception. And, that sometimes happens. Composers are so self-critical that they're their own worst enemies. That's what happened with Hindemith, for example, with his opera Cardiac. About the blacksmith who makes jewelry and kills everyone who buys one of them because he can't part with his jewels. It's very, very cool opera. And the first one is raw and rugged, the original version, and exciting and dissonant and acerbic. And the revised one, he tries to humanize everything, and it's watered it down. Didn't work. And so for Belshazzar's Feast, it's not quite that drastic. I mean, it's the same work, and it's 95% the same. But the original is really, I think, a little bit more fun if you can do it. And I think it's wonderful that the editors of the critical edition suggest as much, because that gives conductors license to put some things back that Walton might have taken out. Anyway, it's not a big deal either way. I just wanted to mention it because it's just consistent with the overall trajectory of Walton's career. Now, I have a dozen Belshazzar's Feasts here, and oh, what an amazing, amazing piece it is. I mean, seriously, do you remember the opening? The trombones. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then the male chorus comes in. Thus spake Isaiah, thy sons that thou shalt beget, they shall be taken away and be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Howl ye. Now I'm going to stop before you start howling. But, oh my God, it's just thrilling. And from there on, it's marvelous. It's absolutely marvelous. You have the lament by the waters of Babylon, and then the baritone sings about the laundry list, the laundry list of all the stuff that you can get in the market in Babylon, and what a big and cool city it was. And from there on, after the first 10 minutes, it's just one huge choral geschrei, a screaming craziness from beginning, from that point to the very end. It's just stunning. The only time it calms down after that really is the murder, the death of Nebuchadnezzar, which is so cool. When the baritone goes, "In that night was Belshazzar Belshazzar the king, slain. And the chorus goes, slain! They'll scream, slain. And then there's that one quiet bit at the very end. The trumpeters and drummers are silent, or whatever the heck that is. It's a little semi-chorus interlude. A wonderful epilogue. And it's quite similar, in fact, conceptually, to the coda of the finale of the First Symphony, which also has a moment where all the noise and brouhaha recedes, and there's a quiet and more meditative moment before the festive finale. Oh, gosh, it's wonderful. Anyway, let's just go through the recordings here, because you're going to want to know what's good and what isn't. And I'm taking these in more or less chronological order. And we're going to see some classics and some newbies. And I have to tell you right off, Belshazzar's Feast is interesting in that the best recordings of it have all been recent. And I am not kidding when I say that. I think, frankly, it's only been recently that we've been able to put together choirs that can sing and spit out the text with the necessary precision at tempo, at high speed, and orchestras that do it justice as well. Usually the orchestra's great, the chorus is, or you have a really big, yummy chorus, and the conducting is by a choral conductor, so it's like, not very exciting. That's what happened with, like, Robert Shaw on Telarc, one of the biggest disappointments, because the choral singing is beautiful, but the orchestra is just, and it came out on Telarc, and it was like, oh, it's going to be thrilling, it's going to sound great, and it does sound great, but you have a great recording of a boring orchestra. And, that's not what you want with Belshazzar's Feast. So let's forget about Shaw. That's how we're going to start out this run-through of all these different performances. Let's start historically. Historically, you begin life with Malcolm Sargent from the mid-50s. Malcolm Sargent was sort of the English provincial choral conductor par excellence. And, it's a mono recording with the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic and the Huddersfield Choral Society. And it's fun to hear a big provincial English amateur choir have a go at it. The performance itself is not great. It's a little slovenly, and it's mono, so it doesn't sound so wonderful. But it has a certain flavor. Let's put it that way. And either you like that flavor or you don't. It's sort of like pub food. You either find it charming or disgusting, depending on your frame of reference. So I'm just mentioning Malcolm Sargent. There's also Walton's own. Now, Walton was not a bad conductor of his own works, but the English orchestras in the late 50s and early 60s, for the most part, aside from the Philharmonia, were somewhat mediocre. And this is with the Philharmonia, thank God, so he gets good playing. He really does. But again, and he's got, I think, also the Philharmonia Chorus, which is also, the Philharmonia Chorus, which is also very good. So this is a very solid performance, but it has been roundly surpassed. It's always interesting to hear what the composer does, especially in terms of like tempo and things like that. And so I recommend hearing Walton's version for those characteristics. But you're going to hear performances of similar character to his, but just better. Better played, better recorded, better sung. And so it was a noble effort. It's a good try, I would say. But it's not really competitive anymore. It really isn't. Also, not terribly special, was Eugene Ormandy in Philadelphia. Believe it or not, they did it. And some of us here in America, it was hard to get sometimes the British recordings. They were imports or they were hard to find. And we were good old reliable Eugene Ormandy. He was, and I think it's wonderful that he did it. I really do. I mean, the fact that he would take a swing at anything and usually turn in very respectable work. But this is another not very, very fine performance. First of all, it's not very well recorded. Second of all, the choral singing it's like the Mendelssohn Choir of Philadelphia, I think, or something like that. I'm almost afraid to look. And let me see. It's the Rutgers University Choir, which tries, but it's just not great. Not anything like what we need to hear in this work, either in terms of dazzle and rhythmic precision, and then slashing accents. I mean, that wasn't Ormandy's thing. And even though the orchestra plays beautifully to the extent you could hear them, and the choral singing, like I said, is just not, forget it. Also, thoroughly in the mediocre middle is Simon Rattle, as you might expect. First of all, his recording of the First Symphony is very mediocre, and his Belshazzar's Feast is very mediocre. It's with Thomas Hampson, who's perfectly fine, and it just doesn't compete with the good ones. You can do an A-B comparison at any point you want, and you will find this does not compare. It simply doesn't. So let's not pretend otherwise, shall we? Then we have, oh yeah, Andre Previn. Now, this is the Andre Previn EMI recording. Walton hated this recording. He was on record as hating this recording, despised it. He said that he thought it was too slow. It's actually not very slow. I mean, it's not really all that different from Walton's own. It's kind of funny. It's a very good performance. It's a good, solid performance. But again, I have to say, it's not exciting the way that Previn's Walton First Symphony is exciting. It just isn't. But it's well done. I mean, it's nicely done. I think part of the problem with it is just that it hasn't held up, just like Walton's own. All of these now, by today's standards, I think it sounds pretty slack. It really does. I was listening to it, to get ready for this talk, and I always had a very favorable impression of it, even in spite of what Walton said. But listening to it again, its defects start showing a little bit more after hearing some of the ones I'm going to tell you about. So Previn was okay, and the other thing is this: Previn actually outmatched himself, because he did another one. This one most people don't remember. It was on the Royal Philharmonic's own label. This is on Carlton Classics now. It comes with the suite from Henry V. This is much more exciting, better played, better recorded than Previn's first one. It's really very, very good. I with Benjamin Luxon and the Brighton Festival Chorus and bunches of other people. I wonder what's happened to this. I don't even know if it's still available. The reason it took me so long to do this talk is because I wanted to go into the overflow room and find this. You can only keep so many Belshazzar's Feasts around your house, right? So half of mine were in the overflow room with this one. And I wanted to make sure I didn't forget it, because first of all, I knew if I did, one of you people would say to me, "Oh, Previn did it twice. You didn't mention it." And he did, and here it is, and it's really better than his first one. It really, really is. Which is interesting, too, because most of Previn's remakes were lousy compared to his first efforts. But, quite good. Quite good. Then we have, let's see, what's this one? And we get to see how tough the competition is now in Belshazzar's Feast recordings. We have David Wilcox with Gwyn Howell. This is on Chandos. And it's very well recorded. You get it with the Gloria and the Coronation Te Deum. So it's all of Walton's major choral works on one disc. And it's nicely done. It's with the Bach choir, which is really too small to do this. I mean, the idea was to have a clarity of diction and transparency, and you have all of those things. And it's a very good recording sonically. But boy, you just want something that has more balls. It just doesn't have the cojones. And Walton at this point in his career was nothing but testosterone, and this needs hormone therapy. It's good for what it is. But it's another one of those, it's a choral conductor doing it, sort of like the Shaw, you know what I mean? It's just not exciting. So that was a nice try. So now we're going to come down to the good ones, or the ones that are still recommendable after all this time, which is really, so 1, 2, 3, I had 14 to start. I thought I had 12. Now I look at it and I say I had 14. And so we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, the seven good ones. We had 7 sort of, they tried, but close but no cigar, and 7 really good ones. First, this is Andrew Davis. This is a live recording in this box. It's separate. You can get it on Warner Apex separately. It was his live Last Night at the Proms recording, and from Royal Albert Hall. And it's just insane. I mean, he just blasts through the thing at absolutely ridiculous tempos. It's not practically speaking, I mean, you don't talk about like sensitivity when you talk about Belshazzar's Feast, but you do want to have a little more weight and a little bit more impact that you can get by having stronger and more forceful accentuation at slightly slower speeds, but it's exciting as hell. It just is. It's a blur, but it's a very, very exciting blur. It's on Warner, and if you want to hear it on Apex, it's fun. It is fun. I mean, it's just fun. And fun counts for a lot in this music. It really does, in early Walton particularly. So I like that. Another one that's very, very, very good, and that really surprised me, and it's still very good because I've listened to it, was Schulte's. This is in the big Schulte in London box, which is probably the only way you can get it now. Although there was like a Walton edition that may have had it in there. I don't remember. Anyway, it's a very fine performance. Schulte did really good stuff with the London Phil, and it has a marvelous, marvelous weight of tone at the lower end. Fantastic organ pedals. It really counts for a lot to be able to hear those low, deep, throbby things. And of course, this being Schulte, it has no subtlety whatsoever. They just rip through it, and it's really exciting. It's a very, very good performance, and it still has maintained itself in the catalog. So good for Sir Georg. It's very, very good. Also very good, and it's hard to find now. It was around forever. Was Andrew Litton with Bryn Terfel, who sort of made a career of doing the baritone solos in Belshazzar's Feast. He appears on a few of them. This is, all of his Walton was very exciting and really hard-hitting and appropriately sharp and sexy, and this still has held up very well too. Now, it was recorded in a cathedral acoustic, and some people have commented that the sonics are a little bit too big and swimmy, but you hear quite a bit of detail. It never bothered me particularly. I think it's rather well recorded, and the singing is wonderful, and it's with the Bournemouth Symphony and the chorus, the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra and chorus, and the Waynfleet Singers as the semi-chorus. And, oh my goodness, I mean, and Lynn Vitti, and it's got like all kinds of people in it. Anybody who could scream on the day, they did it. And it's a lot of fun. So Litton is worth considering. Also worth considering, oh yeah, Slatkin. Just like his Vaughan Williams is wonderful, just like his Walton First was wonderful on Virgin. This is just really, really exciting. Slatkin is terrific in this music. It has edge, it has rhythm, it has tension, it's beautifully paced. I mean, Elgar was fabulous. Slatkin's a really, really good conductor of English music generally. And this is with Thomas Allen and the London Philharmonic. And boy, oh boy, do they play and sing with the London Philharmonic Choir, and it's well recorded too. I really enjoy this performance. I still listen to it pretty regularly when I'm in Belshazzar's feasty type mood. And again, it may be very hard to find right now, but it's very, very good. So let me end. I'm going to end with two that still exist. That may not be too difficult to find and that are absolutely wonderful. And you may have noted that there are sort of two trends in Belshazzar's Feast performances. One is the big, huge, sort of choral festival performance type thing with a massive chorus. And the other is the more sensible, lean, and more careful of balance type performance. And I have one of each. And they're not, what's interesting about them is that the interpretations are rather similar. In other words, they're just exciting as hell with whoever they have. And they let the chips fall where they may, but at least it's under controlled enough conditions where you actually can make out a word or two, and the orchestra sounds great, and the balances are well coordinated and well adjusted. And so they're really just stupendous performances, although of slightly different type. But quite frankly, once the thing gets rocking, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter at all. As long as you know that there are lots of people screaming their guts out, you're in good shape. You really are. And this one really shocked me, I have to say. It really did. I didn't know what to expect, but it's Paul Daniel with the English Northern Philharmonia on Naxos. And if you don't believe me, then you don't believe me. What can I do? but trust me on this, it's fantastic. This is with, again, the Huddersfield Choral Society and the Leeds Philharmonic Chorus, and Laudibus, which is a little semi-chorus thing to do the trumpeters or drummers or silent, and the English Northern Philharmonia under Paul Daniel. And they just put it together. My goodness, they put it together. It's exciting. It's got all of the punch and vibrancy and athleticism of the smaller versions, but it's not. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. You've got, half of the United Kingdom was in Huddersfield on the day to scream at us, and what a noise they make. The only issue I had with this when it originally came out is that the timings are minimal. It's the Crown Imperial and Orban Scepter in, perfectly normal, okay performances of those marches. But, the main thing, so it's a 48-minute disc, but, you want it for Belshazzar's Feast. And you will not be disappointed. You really won't be disappointed. However, I had to pick one, and the one I'm picking is the most recent, believe it or not. It really is, and I could not believe it when it came out, recoupled. It's the late, great Colin Davis and the London Symphony Orchestra on the LSO's own label. Now, this is coupled with the First Symphony, and originally the First Symphony came out all by itself, and it's not a great First Symphony. Not by any stretch of the imagination. When I first reviewed it, I gave it like a 7 on Classics Today. But then they recoupled it with this live Belshazzar's Feast. And holy cow, how things have changed. So like Simon Rattle's, whose Belshazzar is marginally better, but still sort of average. It comes with the First Symphony. Well, this one comes with an average First Symphony, but this is a knockout. It's just a knockout. Colin Davis was one of those conductors who had sort of 2 modes. He actually had, I think I read somewhere, he had some emotional issues to do with depression and whatnot. You can sort of tell, I think, because he was either off or he was on. And when he was on, there was nobody better in the universe, really, because I saw him conduct a whole bunch of live recordings, live performances, and sometimes he just wasn't there. But when he was there, holy cow, you just watch out, because it was really something special. And for Belshazzar's Feast, he was there. The London Symphony plays like demons. I'll even be British. The London Symphony play like demons. Ugh, collective nouns, they drive me crazy. And we've got like the London Symphony Chorus, and Peter Coleman Wright is the baritone. He's nothing special, but you don't have to be special for the minimal amount of work you have to do in Belshazzar's Feast. And they just knocked the ball out of the park, to use an Americanism. Well, you can knock the ball out of the park when you play cricket, too. They bat the ball out of the stadium, or they do something with it. Anyway, it's just wonderful. And if you have a chance to hear this, if it's still around, get this, or get Paul Daniel. These are all relatively recent, in the history of Belshazzar's Feastum. This one was actually 2001, I guess. But still, all things considered, it's really kind of fascinating, I think, how far we've come in appreciating and conducting this particular work. And it just goes to show that, first of all, you have to keep on listening. And second of all, we cannot be nostalgic. We can't be nostalgic for works that are very large and very complex, and that leave lots of room for improvement in, however they're performed. There are lots of things that can go wrong. And if you get a performance where you've trained everyone to the point where they could just do it all, then you're going to have an experience like no other, I guarantee you. So try the Naxos, try the Colin Davis on the LSO label. If you can't get any of those, you can get Slacken, you can get Litton, you can get Schulte, you can even get Andrew Davis. There are plenty of good Belshazzar's Feasts out there. There truly are. And oh, what a thrilling work it is. I have to say, I just adore the piece. And I know so many of you do too, because you've been asking me to do this. And so I hope I haven't disappointed you. Keep on listening, folks. Thanks for joining me. Take care.